finally reached March, which, as far as we know, means Toronto FC should be back in action this month. As always, absolutely nothing set in stone, but we anticipate the club playing against Forge in the Canadian Championship final later this month. Even if that game isn't played, we've got World Cup qualifying and Olympic qualifying to look forward to as well this month. So it should be a busy schedule for us here on Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. My name is Mitchell Tierney, and not to bury the lead too much, we've got a pretty big guest on this week's show. So we'll bring him on immediately here. Toronto FC defender on loan currently with HB Køge in the Danish league, Rocco Romeo. Very excited to have this guest.
Hey guys.
Rocco, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, doing great.
Rocco.
Yeah, thanks so much
I mean, Mitch's sun's out, guns out. So obviously it's March the 1st.
Yeah, I mean it's still minus 10, but the sun's here. So
I was telling Rocco before he came on, man, I wore this for him. He's a hometown kid, so I had to represent. It's a Richmond Hill Raiders track jacket. Jeff was asking before, so shout out to our Richmond Hill boy over here, Rocco Romeo, and thanks for joining us, man.
I'm also a Richmond Hill boy. I listened to that first scrum that you sent about 5 minutes before we started, so I had to jam it in. But I heard the Richmond Hill shout, and I need one of those jackets. Where does one go to get one? Richmond Hill Raiders
exclusive, buddy, exclusive. Exclusive content here. All right, yeah, let's get right into things though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. How are things going? I mean, obviously your second stint with Køge right now. What have you learned from the first spell that's kind of set you up for success this time around?
Yes, this is my second time around here in Denmark. The first time was a really good experience for me. I was only 18 years old at the time, so it was kind of a big change for me moving overseas on my own. But the club over here was very accommodating with where I was staying and transportation, as well on the pitch in terms of training and in matches. Everyone was very welcoming, and the team took me in with open arms. And being put into a new environment, especially overseas, and you're playing with men, you kind of have to show how you can play to earn their respect. I was very happy, that I got the playing time that I did, and like the success that the team did, and it was fantastic for me because I did develop as a footballer and also as a man, because living on your own at such a young age and having to take care of yourself, do your own things, not have mom and dad doing it for you all the time. It really matured me in more of an adulthood aspect. And then coming home, having this season with TFC2, it was different. It was different. The level is different compared to the Danish First Division to USL League One. But still, it was good. It was good to be back home. And then unfortunately, with everything that happened with COVID last year, I got sent back out here, and it's been different from the first time for sure. But the experiences have been fantastic. It's like a completely different team now. A lot of new players from the last time, new coach too. Yeah, so it's been different. And I've been enjoying myself every day, though. A lot of people can't play football right now due to COVID-19. So I'm very happy that I can still get up in the morning, get ready for training, have matches and whatnot.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, you're right now the only Toronto FC first team member that's out on loan, but in a way, that's not a bad thing at all, because you've had this opportunity a bit more than perhaps some of the other young guys. Isn't that true?
Yeah, no, for sure. I've even spoken to most of the young guys back home, and they say it's difficult right now because they can't compete. The only time you can really compete or get some sort of sense of like a game realistic thing is like training, and sometimes they're not even doing that.
Right.
But in the first half of the season here, when Noble Okello came over, it was really nice to see a familiar face, and even him and I got to train together and even play in a match together as well. So it kind of was a bit more welcoming.
For sure. You guys like grew up together and then you sort of made that jump overseas. That's pretty insane. Like you get to go like live overseas with, I don't want to say he's one of your best friends. I don't put words in your mouth, but like a person you at least grew up with and you're familiar with. And that's, to me, that's an insane kind of dream for a youngster growing up, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it was kind of crazy because we played a game in another city, and it was unfortunate because I actually got a red card that game in like the 90th minute. But
Didn't you score as well?
No, it was that was the cup game.
That was a different red card that he got.
Okay.
After the game, Noble and I were just sitting in the locker room, and like everyone else was like celebrating, doing their thing, and like we both just looked at each other, and we were like we just like gave each other a nod.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a surreal moment right there. But no, he's a very, very, very good friend of mine. As you said, we've grown up together. We've been through all the ranks together. So, that was a pretty cool experience.
Right on.
Right on. I'm just loving the Danish architecture in your flat there. It's pretty sweet. Your story reminds me of a book that I got turned on to during COVID times. It's Bobby Warsaw's tome. Bobby Warsaw, of course, was an analyst for MLS for a while. He bounced around the league, and it's all about his experiences playing overseas. And I do think with a few stops in Denmark. So if you're looking for something to read, that might be a decent shout. I want to talk about TFC a little bit, and listening to the scrum, I know that you grew up as a fan. How special was it to sign that contract?
It was, honestly, it's probably one of the biggest things that's happened in my football career right now. A lot of kids who are from Toronto and like are from Ontario, they take a lot of pride in saying, yeah, I'm from Toronto and I play for Toronto FC. Even in my academy days, when I have like my school friends or even like random people who see me at the gym and I tell them, oh, I play for the TFC Academy, like they would look at you differently and be like, okay, like, this guy's like serious. But yeah, that day when I signed my first team contract, it was, I knew it was coming, but I knew that the hard work is going to start now. Even growing up, there's only like a very little percentage of professional footballers who actually make it to the top. And it's like everyone gets to that same level, but who has the X factor, who's going to be playing? And sure, like I envision myself playing in the MLS and, getting consistent games, but I want to take it a step further and be great. Like I always had this background of like my parents always saying like, strive for greatness, you're made for greatness. So that's something that my family and I have never shied away from or never, just turned our heads to. That we always take it with full force and heads on.
Right on.
We got a question from producer Kev.
Yeah,
we might as well
that
bring that up right now. I'll read it out. It's thanks for joining the show, Rocco. What was different about the level between Denmark and the USL League One?
The biggest difference would probably be that the pace of the game and also like the technicality and the tactics. Over here in Denmark, every game is a struggle because every weekend or every week, you never know what kind of game you're getting into or what kind of result you're getting into. Typically in USL, like, you would know like some teams is going to be like an easier game or some games, if you're going to have more ball possession. But over here, it's just like you have to really, fight. You have to really go into the battle and, really earn your wins.
Right.
And also the technicality and the quality of the players is much, much higher over here in Europe compared to USL League One. And it's not a bad thing either. It's just how, the culture is, over here in Europe, everything's football. And compared to Canada and the US, you have a lot of other opportunities, whether it be basketball, football, even education in some aspects.
Makes sense. And of course, yeah, we're joined by Toronto FC's Rocco Romeo, center back, 21 years old now? 20 years old?
I'm turning 21 at the end of the month, actually.
Turning 21 at the end of the month. Wow, you boomer, man. You boomer.
Yeah. Also, it's Romeo. It's Romeo, isn't it? Not
Rocco Romeo. Yeah, good call.
Yes.
Good catch.
Just think of the joke that I keep making, the Shakespeare joke, the obvious Romeo and Denmark Shakespeare joke, and it'll be fine.
I'm sure he gets it all the time.
I do.
Looking over your shoulder there, like it's nighttime there in Denmark, so we really appreciate you taking the time here to join us. Chris Armas, new Toronto FC head coach. It's almost like a different start, isn't it? Have you gotten the chance to spoke to Chris Armas, and if so, what has he said to you?
Yeah, Chris gave me a call. I think maybe early February, and it was just him and I introducing each other over the phone. It was a good conversation. He had a lot going on still in terms of actually getting to Toronto due to COVID and everything. But like I asked him about the vision that he wants to go into and his plans for the club. And we had a very open and honest conversation about what he expects, and also me telling him what kind of a player I am. Yeah, he's a high quality coach. He has a history of developing young players and getting results with young players, like pushing to MLS playoffs and even making a deep playoff run. When I got the news, I did a little bit of homework and background. So I was very excited in the way that the direction that the club is moving in. And when I finish my loan, of course, I'm going to be looking forward to make an impact in the team and have a good first impression on the coach, and be a key role in the squad.
Mm-hmm. You're going to be surprised how terrible Carlsberg tastes over here after having the real stuff.
So Rocco, what kind of player did you tell Chris Armas that you are, and how would you describe yourself as a player to the fans?
I would say that I'm a very vocal, loud presence. I'm a tall guy, so myself being 6'4", people notice you, and people will always be like, oh, like, who's that freakishly tall guy or whatever. So I would me being a center back too, I need to be like the focal point in the team, like always like directing people and making sure everything is organized. As well, like I would describe myself as like a more modern day center back. So like I say, like I'm pretty technical with my feet, and I'm comfortable being on the ball, and whether it be taking the ball forward or even hitting a couple of diagonals. Like I can do it consistently and do it good. As well, like me being tall, I'm good in the air, so my aerial battles. And I'm really starting to like fill into my body now. And because before, like when I was young, I used to be like a skinny kid and whatever. So now, like I'm starting to fill into my body and like be more aggressive, and yeah, like that. I'm a very fun guy. Like I like
fun
to
guy.
Fun guy. That's a deep
that
cut.
plays well in Toronto.
I like to be loud. I like to be like, I love football at the end of the day. So every day is a blessing for me, and I give all my success and glory to the Lord. And I'm just I love it.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I want to. Go ahead, sorry. Jeff. Actually,
just to interject, I think somebody on your team needs to edit your Wikipedia page because they list you as 6'2". So they took 2 inches.
Man, they're violating me.
That's slander. That's slander, man.
And the other one is I listened to your first scrum, and your 4 idols are Maldini, Van Dijk, Ramos, and David Luiz. I'm a gunner, and I don't even understand the David Luiz shout.
Come up.
I love the David Luiz shout.
Is it just his weirdo free kicks that maybe occasionally score bangers?
No.
Okay.
His touch, his composure, his go ahead.
Ability to create chaos out of nothing. No,
I was following David Luiz since Chelsea beat Bayern in the Champions League final. So David Luiz was always like a center back, kind of like CDM. So he was very, very technical, very calm on the ball. And that's something I took from him, and even his diagonals and his composure and the way how he is not afraid to get stuck in sometimes.
Yeah.
But compared to the other three, I say four. Like, I can't name one because I take something from each one of those four. So David Luiz, for example, is his calmness and his technical ability, whether to hit straight diagonal or if the diagonal is curving to the fullback and whatnot.
Yeah, I think one thing about David Luiz is when he came on the scene, people were like, "Wow, that guy's different. That guy is not really a natural center back." And it's cool that you kind of take that from his game, because I believe you grew up playing as a holding midfielder before.
Yeah,
he made that switch over to center back. So it's cool that you have that sort of inspiration there. What I want to get back at is that homegrown kind of aspect. I remember you telling me that your parents had season tickets back in 2016, 2017. Obviously, those were the glory days of Toronto FC. Can you just tell me what that emotion was like when you were sitting in that stadium and TFC was, winning that treble? You were part of the academy then.
Was he a ball boy? Were you a volunteer ball boy for any games?
I was for some of the regular season games, but never for any playoff games or anything like that. But yeah, going back to your question, yeah, it was kind of insane. I think that's the best way to put it. Because as I said before speaking to you, my dad actually got season tickets for my sister and I, and also my godfather. So every weekend or every week, during the summer, we would go and we'd have our seats. And it was insane because the club was playing some really, really high quality football, and we were blowing teams out 3-4, sometimes 5-0.
Oh, we remember.
Yeah. And then it was a very unique moment for me because the club before wasn't really known as a championship winning organization. So during that spell of when we were making deep playoff runs and reaching the MLS final and not winning, and I was at that game, and I remember I was like damn, man, it was right there, it was set up for us and everything. But then also being a part of the organization and seeing the first team guys and their philosophy for that 2017 year, and seeing how they grinded and how they were never satisfied. And I think the theme for that year was redemption. I did get the opportunity to train with the first team that year in 2017 on some occasions, and the quality and you could see the fire in their eyes for that 2017 was their year. And then I went to the MLS final with my family, and I was kind of joking around with my dad because I was standing on my seat. And I was like, Dad, I'm jumping over, I'm running. And then after that, I thought in my head again, and I was like, no, it's not my time. I said I want to be on the pitch when that happens. I don't want to be a fan running on the field. So then also I actually went to the parade with my mom. I skipped school that day, and it's kind of weird now though, because it's 2017, I was just a fan in the academy, and now these guys are my teammates, so it's kind of it's kind of a full circle type thing.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
True homegrown story.
I'm trying to condense all of because I'm never going to be in an academy. I'm never going to be in a football academy, and I'm never going to be in TFC's academy. So I want the scoops. But specifically, when you said you got to train with the first team during the 2017, does that mean you were on team Benoit Cheroux playing against the first team?
What do you mean team Benoit Cheroux?
Well, wasn't he the captain of the second team when you guys trained? Again, I've never been in a TFC academy, but
Benoit was a first team player. And I know I know sometimes they'll send some first team guys down to play in TFC2 for some matches, whether to be at game fitness or just to prepare them for the Canadian Championship or prepare for a game on the weekend. But no, sometimes we would train in earlier in the morning, so around maybe I don't know, 9 or 10, and then in the middle of the session, like Jim Liston would like come over to our field and be like, okay, we need XYZ players to come join our training.
Nice.
And then so they would just pull us from our session, and we go join the first team session, or even we would finish our TFC2 session, and then you'd have to go train another session with the first team.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Honestly, sorry.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, how was it like going up against like a Jozy, a Seba, players like that? How were those experiences for
you? Obviously, my first time, it's a bit, intimidating. I'd say because, the like Jozy, like, come on, like.
Enough said.
Yeah. I was like 16, 17 years old, and like I'm like some like scrawny kid who's got to defend like this like this beast. But no, then I've like as I said before, like the guys are welcoming. They bring you in. It's like kind of like this. It's kind of similar to when I went on my loan spell in Denmark the first time. You have to play to earn their respect. You have to show what you can bring to the team, and then as that happens, then you show your quality. They'll be able to trust you more on the ball and even off the ball. And I was very thankful to be a part of that and go up and down, train sometimes, not train sometimes with the first team. And yeah, it was a great experience for me.
Rocco,
any other cool stories
before we let you go? Before we let you go here, I did want to ask quickly about the Olympic qualifying. You were on the 50-man preliminary roster. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you any more about the final roster because I don't even know if that's been decided yet, but I don't want to get you in trouble. But I did want to ask about Canada in general, and with all the games coming up for the national team and all the different competitions, where is that on your radar, and the importance of getting into that Canada team?
Yeah, it's been like my top priority, honestly. I haven't been a part with the national team since the under-20s, the CONCACAF. So, it's been a while, and honestly, it's been like on my mind a lot lately. And, I've really been wanting to, represent the men's team. So, I just keep my head down, and I just, keep working, keep grinding, fight for minutes to get playing time, and, give the Canada staff something to look at and show something that they need or something that they don't have already. And yeah, it's been on the forefront of my mind because, like I want to represent my country. I want to be a part of that squad and be a part of that team who has these ambitions of going to the Olympics or even qualifying for the World Cup. And I feel like I'm ready. I feel like I'm at the standard. I'm at the level that they need, and I can bring something different to the table and a different mentality, whether it be just being an absolute animal of a defender, and bringing my spark to the team, because I know I have a uniqueness about me that that doesn't come around often. So yeah, like I said, it's been on the forefront of my mind, and as you said, it is exciting times. So hopefully everything works out and whatnot. And if not, then it's fine. We keep going. We keep my head down. We keep working, and we wait for another opportunity.
Interesting to think about, because you're on loan over there in Denmark. Do you think it's tougher to perhaps get that notice, that exposure, since you're in Denmark versus players who are playing locally, perhaps?
If I have to be completely honest, it
no,
doesn't
you don't
matter.
have to be.
No. I personally think that it doesn't matter how old you are or where you're playing, as long as you have the quality and as long as you're showing up every day like to the best of your ability, and you're giving them no reason not to pick you. I don't see why not someone shouldn't get selected. It doesn't matter if I'm on loan playing in Denmark, or if someone's playing in like Latvia, or someone's playing back home in Toronto or in Montreal. If you have the quality and you show them no reason why you shouldn't get selected, then it is what it is.
What's that John Herdman saying? If you're good enough, you're old enough. So I think that's
Is it?
pretty.
Are we
Rocky
saying it's
thing.
John Herdman's quote now? I believe
Yeah,
it's
just
older
officially his
than
soul.
association football.
I didn't even know that, but
We've been trying to say that correctly on the show for multiple weeks. We get it wrong every time, but I think we finally got it right
if you're
there.
good enough, you're old enough. I'm pretty sure that's it.
There we go.
Yeah.
But Rocco, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Rocco.
Really
Man, this
appreciate
was wonderful. Really, really,
no
really,
worries.
really.
Is there
insightful.
anything else that you want to get off your chest before we let you off? Because you're getting cut off at this point, Rocco.
Oh, no problem. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to be on this platform. I hope all you guys are staying safe during this time, and hopefully I'll see you guys sooner or when I get back home.
Cheers,
There you
man.
go.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Rocco.
You too as well. Yeah.
All right, take care.
Talk soon, man.
Of course, that was Rocco Romeo. Rocco Romeo.
Romeo.
Rocco Romeo. Toronto FC Loney over there overseas in Denmark. So thanks again to Rocco for joining us. We're excited to see not only his story here as he tries to vie and crack that Olympic roster, but also when he comes back in June. And Toronto FC's, we can talk about Canada's depth at center back, how that has question marks. And, Toronto FC's depth at center back also has question marks. So perhaps Rocco Romeo is one of those answers. And Jason saying, yeah, he's great. He's future captain. Honestly, my first impression of him, media scrum, first day that he signed that contract, I felt the same way. Because
here comes Gav with the save, by the way. Sir Matt Busby.
There we go.
Yeah, anyways, what I was saying was the words that Rocco was talking about was like he kept on saying winning and leader. It wasn't about him. He refused to make it about him. He just made it only about the team, and that's crazy for a 19-year-old at the time. It just shows that, like, I think he understands, and mentally he's there, and that's such a huge step, such a huge factor for a young kid, and I'm excited to see where he goes.
Yeah, I mean, if you sent me at 18 years old to Denmark all by myself, it would be a wonderful weekend, but I don't think I'd be human by Monday. So
a lot of growing up. They do a lot of growing up.
Yeah.
What's Armstrong? What is it? 1302. Whose shirt is he trolling? Is it a Mike's shirt?
Could be.
If I had to guess, I'd say Mitch.
Ouch.
Well, I mean, both Mitch and Mike have cut me off this episode, which is hilarious. I love it.
That's true. I did want to touch on the Olympic qualifying roster because I think that kind of picks up on a lot of things we were talking about.
Sure.
I think it's going to be really interesting because, as Chris Armas said in a scrum this week, the Canadian Championship final might be played on March 20th, which is a day after the March 19th expected, Canada's first game at Olympic qualifying. So
no. Isn't Olympic qualifying 25th?
No, that's Canada. That's a World Cup qualifying.
That's World Cup qualifying.
Yeah, March.
What a year, boys!
Is when Olympic qualifying starts. So,
who needs sleep and recovery?
As much as we're excited about that, how many Toronto FC guys are going to be there? Because you'd have to expect anyone. Again, they have to start 3 Canadians in that Canadian Championship final. So anyone who reasonably can be expected to play in that game probably is not going to Canadian national team camp for the Olympics. There's guys that Armas has singled out in terms of who he likes. Schafelberg, who'd be one of the names that I've penciled in on that Olympic roster. I can't see Fraser going. I don't know about Priso. Like, all of a sudden, Canada is going to have a really tough time putting together a roster for this competition.
Yeah, that's what Chris Armas was hinting at when he spoke to media yesterday. And he was saying there's a bunch of factors that the team has to take into account as to whether or not it's best for the player. We talk about, that one Canadian Championship game. I don't even think that's the biggest concern. It's more so the games that are building up after that. We talk about the Champions League. April 6th is when TFC would hypothetically have to play Club Lyon, but if they can get past Forge, by the time the kids come back from Olympic qualifying, are they going to be quarantined, ready to partake in that match? I don't know if that's obviously some of the logistics they have to work over. You talk about a few people that were dealing with injuries. Liam Fraser obviously had that ankle injury, which kept him out of January camp. So I don't imagine TFC would be too keen on letting him go, and especially during a condensed season like we have. And there are some other young guys that potentially Canada might veto. And again, Chris Armas was saying that a couple of them might have picked up like slight knocks, and it's just not worth the risk. But I'm interested to see who that list is, because obviously the likes of Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty, Jaden Nelson, Ralph Priso, they're all going to, or Canada would like them to be there. It's just a matter of, does TFC feel that that's best for them as well?
Well, from a Canada soccer perspective too, as we said, this date hasn't been finalized yet. We don't think. Chris Armas isn't even sure if this game's going to be played. Like,
no. He said it's gonna. He said he was baffled.
Okay.
Yeah, he was baffled at the idea that the fact that it wouldn't be played.
Fair
So
enough.
this game is going to be played, and he actually threw out March 20th as a potential date. So,
but
question mark still though. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
If you're Canada soccer, right, like as important as this Canadian Championship game is, would you want to hurt your Olympic qualifying chances by, I don't think any Forge players are going to be in the roster based on, maybe a David Chouanier, one of them potentially, but there could be a bunch of TFC players that Canada would be hoping for. Would you want to hurt your Olympic qualifying chances by having the Canadian Championship at a time when the Olympic roster would be in camp? It's a really, obviously all these games need to be played, and there's going to be so many hurdles for everyone between Chris Armas, Mauro Biello, John Herdman to juggle, but it's an interesting thing that they're going to have to figure out.
And let's not forget, the Olympics might not happen.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
it could be pointless.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of conjecture going on, but I agree with you. I mean, when you think about the realities of quarantining both ways and all that other stuff, and then match fitness and fixture congestion, I'm not surprised, because as the calendar kept moving towards this eventuality and nothing was happening, I think we could all see over the horizon that this was going to be a disaster that they would have to deal with. And now it is.
Very interesting. One thing I also want to point out was the U.S. dropped their Olympic qualifying roster this week, and I don't know if this is surprising or not, but I think it kind of is a testament to the direction that TFC is heading. There's no player under 23 U.S. that was named from Toronto FC to that roster, and obviously TFC have been linked with like the U.S. team in Canada, and I think we're moving away from that because of I think signs like this. We're going to see 8-9 players potentially at this Canada camp from Toronto SC and 0 at the US camp. So read into that, I guess, what you will.
It's a fair shout. That's a fair shout. I mean, there's a lot of people that deride TFC for being U.S. men's national team North, and we certainly, 5-6 years ago, that was certainly a lot closer to the truth than it is now. It's a good shout, Mike. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I think,
start at the top.
Well, speaking of young players, there's none more so that made headlines this week than Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty for all of the interest that's coming out in terms of teams inquiring about him, scouting him, all those sorts of things. Reports include Manchester United, City, Bayern Munich, Juventus. I've also heard in the past Barcelona have inquired about him. I think the list probably goes well beyond that. Obviously it's probably a couple of years before he's able to move over, considering the eligibility rules. We saw that with Jonathan David, we saw that with Alphonso Davies as well, but it's, if you ever wanted more I guess proof that this is a special player, the European clubs will tell you that.
And he's played what, like 40 minutes, 400 minutes? What's the
16 minutes, 17 minutes, something like that.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
No, this kid is special, and he got the sense of it as soon as he signed his first team contract. I was there for his first media scrum. I was only like one of 2-3 people, so perhaps this maybe is an exclusive. But what I will say is Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty's favorite club. Just saying, growing up, guess what it is?
It's your Manchester United, isn't it?
You already know. It's Manchester United. He said at the
Good
time.
idea in 1996.
He still loved Manchester United. He still watched their games. His favorite player on the current team was Marcus Rashford. So maybe that is an exclusive, guys. Obviously, I'm kidding. There's a lot of factors that go into joining a different club and which club you're going to choose in your future. But what is exciting is that we are having these conversations. And yeah, there was the report today, but yeah, I can confirm that these clubs are definitely interested in Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty, and they were interested in him before he signed his first team contract. So it's not like this year all of a sudden made some dramatic change on his trajectory. He's still on his way up, and what I'm hoping for this season is to get a lot more than 17 minutes out of Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty, because last
season just gave him one more from the 16 that you quoted.
It's more than that, but
yeah.
Like last season, we saw the likes of like a Tsubasa Endo taking away minutes from Jaden Nelson. We can't see that anymore when you think about how highly touted these types of players are. If they are as good as, nobody expected Fonzie to go over and do what he does, but if he's half as good as what Fonzie is, that's 10 times as good as Endo is. Do you know what I mean? Like you might as well invest in these kids now, as opposed to playing someone who's 27, 28 years old to get a standard that's this high, when the kid will give you a standard that's a little bit lower, but his ceiling is way higher. So there is that cost and reward. And I just think that level that Endo brings is not as high. It's not, that drop off is not as steep as perhaps TFC were perceiving it to be. I understand that you have veterans, sometimes they earn that status. But if you guys really want to move in the direction that you want to move, I really think that these minutes now have to go towards a Jaden Nelson, a Jacob Schafelberg, a Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty. There's no longer content with a 16-year-old who's highly touted as Jahkeele sitting on the bench for the majority of matches. I think he has to find a way to be a role player this year, especially in a condensed schedule. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Are we in dire straits? Would you say that if we don't do that this year, we're going to lose some of these players?
Well, I think regardless, we just talk about the way Rocco was talking there. I think regardless, we are going to lose some of these players eventually, but perhaps we're going to lose the next Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty, who sees what's happening.
Never going to come through,
with Jahkeele, and you see that he's just sitting on the bench. God forbid his value drops a bit, and maybe he doesn't get that high profile deal that he was linked with earlier because of what's happened here at TFC. And obviously, TFC aware of this. Like it's not like they're completely oblivious to the fact that Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty needs to get exposure, needs to get playing time. It's just I don't know. As a fan, you want to see it sooner rather than later, especially when you see him linked to teams like this, right?
Yeah. Okay.
One thing before we move on to that, I remember on Twitter, Colin reached out and he said he wanted to talk about that Michael Bradley kind of tidbit in that Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty quote. And if you guys missed it, essentially it was Chris Armas talking about Jahkeele, and in his quote he just kind of segued and he said that with young players it's often about mentality. And he said Michael Bradley never arrives. He's not going to arrive. And he asked, like, do you know what I mean? And honestly, at first I was like, nah, Chris, I had no idea what you mean.
Yeah, I actually, so what, he never shows up? Like, he does his training?
Yeah. I was like, whoa, it kind of sounds like a slight at Michael Bradley. But no, but when you actually like put it into context, take the full quote and understand what he's trying to say, essentially what he's saying is young kids often, when they come in, they have highs and they have lows. Right, they come in and they try and make a super impression, go for that full sprint, and then the 3 hours later they're not putting up that same kind of consistency. With Michael Bradley, you know what you're getting. He never arrived. Like you know what's happening with Michael Bradley. He doesn't need to come in and make a huge impact. You know what you're slotting in with Michael Bradley, and I think that's what Chris Armas was sort of getting there too. Colin, I know you were asking that. But yeah,
we might not know what we're getting with Michael Bradley this year, because apparently he might be played in a new position.
Great segue.
Nice. A number of players spoken about by Chris Armas suggest that they could be used in different roles this season. I think the one that stood out maybe first and foremost was Bradley. Him saying that Bradley could be played in a role higher up the field, closer to Boswello, where they could combine up there and create. This isn't unknown territory for Toronto FC. I remember, I think it was 2015 when Jurgen Klinsmann with the U.S. men's national team wanted him to play as a attacking midfielder. Toronto FC did that as well, and it went pretty well. I mean, obviously Bradley was much younger at that point, but 5 goals, 6 assists, his most productive season with Toronto FC. But it'll be interesting. Obviously, I think I need to see it in practice at this point, but it's interesting to have a coach that will come in and, not put these guys in maybe the boxes that they've been in for so long, that he'll try different things with a number of players. And I think for a Toronto FC side that we saw maybe, run out of ideas last year, that's positive.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head there when Michael Bradley did kind of do that back in 2015. The way that Armis was talking there, and he talked about pause and Altidore, it reminded me of that 2015, 2016, 2017 teams with Seba and Jozy up top. Because what we're going to see, you talked about Paz playing a different role. What we're going to see now is I think we're going to see more of Paz as a false nine with Jozy Altidore still playing striker. So he's going to be almost as a center attacking midfield from my impression. This is obviously they have a couple different ways that they can use this, but from my impression, it looks like Paz is going to be sticking really close to Jozy Altidore, almost like the way that Seba did back in the day, where he wasn't really a true striker, but he's playing forward and he's not going to come backtrack, right? I think we're going to get that same sort of setup there with Paz and Jozy up top, and they're hoping the two of them can link up together and recreate some of that Seba Jozy magic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that and seeing how that plays out. Although we have seen false nine Paz in the past, and it wasn't always roses for TFC fans, let's put it that way, and we were pretty adamant about playing Paz as a number 10. So I'm interested to see how that goes, and this is where Bradley kind of comes into play. Paz and Jozy, we know that they're not the most mobile players. While Armis is quick to praise Jozy for the work that he's doing, the pressing that he's willing to do, he was also open about saying that he understands where Jozy Altidore is, and sometimes like the way that you can load manage these players is by the way that they press without the ball. They often don't have to do too much work. It's just about doing the smart work. Behind those guys, though, and this is why you sort of have Michael Bradley playing a little bit up the field, is you want your team pressing, is you want your team kind of putting the other teams in corners. And is there anyone who's better at pressing than perhaps a Osorio, Delgado, and Bradley midfield in MLS? Those are probably the three of the toughest midfielders in all of MLS to play against. So if you slot those guys behind the Jozy Paz attack, it could be a recipe for success. And that's sort of what the vision that Armis is kind of selling here is a team that's really, really hard to play against. And we kind of saw that under Greg Vanney in 2019, where they established that identity. But Armis is really stressing the mental side of things. And from all accounts, all TFC players have bought in. He specifically mentioned Jozy, Paz, Osorio, Michael Bradley, Omar, and Chris Mavinga as leading the charge, which is obviously the players that you want to do that. And he was really, really adamant about praising those guys. So I'm really excited to see how TFC respond to all of this, because I really do think we're going to get a new look TFC. As Mitch pointed out, it's not going to be the TFC that was in the box. It's going to be a different looking club, and excited to see how some of these pieces take on some of these different roles.
Depth pieces that have caught the attention of Armis include a guy, Schafelberg and Patrick Mullins.
Hey,
listen,
Greg's been asking about him for a minute, so I think we should give him some spotlight here and talk about him a bit.
Let's do it.
So yeah, Chris Armis was probably the first name to come to mind for Chris Armis of the depth pieces. Perhaps was Ericsson Gallardo, and similar to sort of last year, we were hearing that Gallardo's having a great preseason. This is the part that really excited me, because I've stressed this so many times. Ericsson Gallardo was played out of position, in my opinion, when he was brought on the field last season and even like the year before. He's not a pure outside winger. Can he play that role? Perhaps, but he's best when he's on the shoulder of opposite. He's on their opponent's back line. He's trying to get in behind. And he's also at his best when he's working without the ball, and he's capable of doing that even through the middle. And I really think he wears that number 9 shirt. I really think we have to start playing him almost as that number 9, who can play off someone like a Jozy Altidore and just beat someone with speed. last season, going back to last season, he was the guy who was kind of playing that role, and then he scored his first preseason goal, and then he got injured. And obviously the pandemic hit and shut things down. But throughout all of that, for whatever reason, Greg Vanney was singing praise about Ericsson Gallardo, especially in training. So is this the year that he finally pieces it all together? We know after 2019, he had his child, and they moved to Canada. He's 23 years old. He's completely different life with a baby in a different country. In 2020, we had the pandemic. But in 2021, we're at excuses here. And I think that's what Ali Curtis said when he spoke to Toronto Sun, is that all options are on the table for Ericsson Gallardo. Loan options are on the table, potentially having him go out alone and come back in later on in the season. But also what was on the table is the fact that a new coach could reinvigorate him. A new coach could be that spark under Ericsson Gallardo that finally gets him going. Because when he was brought here, he was hyped up, even though he was young and he's not. We've debated about him being a TAM signing. Yeah, he was a TAM signing because of the transfer fee, but salary-wise, he hasn't been paid like that. So obviously expectations are really, really high, and I think TFC also hold that expectation really high. I think this is going to be a crucial year for Ericsson Gallardo, and it's honestly like make or break.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
But I liked hearing that he was impressed with Schaff and Mullins. I mean, especially Mullins. I liked hearing that he has time for
Mullins.
Mullins
is a great locker room guy. I remember speaking to him last season, and I was blown away. He's saying all the right things. He's some guy who doesn't get playing time, and I couldn't believe how professional he was. And shout out to Patrick Mullins, because he is a true top class professional, and he's someone on your roster that you love to have, because he's not going to be he's not going to fit out of place. He's just going to make sure he fits in and help do what he can to help the team when he understands his role. Armis said he looks the most settled he's ever seen or felt in his life.
Didn't he say that to him? He actually said that to him. He said,
Patrick Mullins said that to Armis.
Yeah.
Armis said that's translated onto the field. And what's interesting enough is I saw on Instagram, Patrick Mullins got married this offseason. So perhaps that's some of that maturing, and perhaps that will translate onto the field. So hey, we do often we're quick to overlook Patrick Mullins here, and perhaps he'll turn a few heads. Shaft's a good shout. What do you guys think about the year that Shaft will have this season?
He needs to evolve. His game's too direct. He needs more in his toolbox. Otherwise, I love him.
Right. I think James Grossi was on here, and he said that's what Greg Vanney challenged him to do last season, was instead of taking it down the line every time, you want to have him cut inside sometime, change things up. I think it's a good shout that Shaft is kind of included there by Armis. He kind of grouped in there alongside Ericsson Gallardo as sort of those, I guess, players behind the strikers that could, make an impact. Jacob Schafelberg had a little bit of a down season last season, but if he can get back on track, that's another good one that TFC have.
Yeah, he's got speed that they, again, as a team, Toronto FC don't have a lot of team speed. They're an older side in general in terms of their starters, and that raw speed alone. And we saw bits and pieces, right? Like obviously we haven't seen full matches coming out of Canada camp, but the bits and pieces we saw of Jacob Schafelberg, he looked like he was taking what Greg Vanney was saying and bringing it on board. He won a penalty where he made one of those direct runs inside and got taken down. And, pretty much every time we saw him, he was trying to make those more direct cuts to the middle. So I think, by all accounts, he's been continuing to do that with Toronto FC in preseason. And that's a positive because, again, this is a guy who could take that next step and be, at least an important depth piece for the club this season.
Cool.
Well said.
Ayo Akinola update. Still injured, not ready.
We got a Michael Singh injury update. It's been way too long.
Let's go. Where's the ticker? So we got Ayo Akinola, who, when I first heard, I was a little concerned because he wasn't named to the US camp. He wasn't named to the Canada camp. And he obviously missed out on the January Canada camp. So if an injury was keeping you out for 3 months, or medical issue, whatever it is keeping you out for 3 months, that's a little bit of a concern. But we finally got some good news this week from Chris Armis, who said that he expects Ayo Akinola to be back mid-March. So that'll be right before the Canadian Championship. Obviously, I really don't expect him to play any sort of role in that because I don't know what the injury is, what the issue was, but he obviously has some work to do to get back up to game speed there. So hopefully he'll be ready by that Champions League game. If not, I expect him to be back by the start of the MLS season. So that's some really positive news there from a Toronto FC perspective for sure.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, let's finish up the show here. I think with the men's national team news that they're going to play in Orlando. I did want to mention as well. We didn't mention this earlier, but the difference obviously between this men's national team camp, one, obviously it's a World Cup qualifier, so top priority for John Herdman and his staff. The other thing is it is a FIFA window. The Olympic tournament is not an official FIFA event, so Canada doesn't really have any leverage there with the clubs. They can't, they don't have that same leverage that they do with a World Cup qualifier where they can just say, Oso's coming. I'm pretty sure in theory, they obviously, like, you wouldn't want to sour the relationship like this, but France almost did it way back when with Franck Ribéry. You can strong arm a club and they can get suspended league games if they don't come. So that does exist. I'm not suggesting it's going to get anywhere near there, but that does suggest that is the case for the FIFA international games versus the Olympic qualifiers. So we do know Canada will be playing in Orlando. The other game is reportedly going to be in Florida as well. So interesting. 4 of Canada's last 4 camps have been in Florida. So it seems like they're making a home there. But I mean, that's COVID, but also maybe a bit of a positive step that they are comfortable in that state now.
It's a good point. Consistency there is key. And you made some great points about the Olympic roster, and I know you want to wrap up there, but just one more question that I had, and it's
I want to talk about the new kit, but I guess we're doing that next week.
It's on that consistency matter. It's I saw an article today. I think it was MLS Multiplex put it out, and they were wondering are the lack of signings from Toronto FC, is that a concern to you? And I'll pose that to you guys. I wanted to hear your thoughts if that's a concern to you.
No. Not at all.
Why is that?
Trust the process. Well, one, because of our discussion last week, and the sort of discussion around this new young DP rule. 2, because pandemic. 3, I trust in the process. I mean, we're going for players. I mean, Santos Borre is all over South American and Central American news, right? It's a target that a lot of other clubs are looking at, and if we want to swim in that pool, you have to accept that these things are, it's a 50-50 shot, right? And sometimes it's not going to happen. We've got a summer transfer window. We're not playing at home. Chris Armas is basically been saying that there are a lot of distressed assets in TFC's roster that seem to have turned a corner. So yeah, I mean, it's just a new shiny toy thing. I want the team to perform well, and if that's with our current roster or with the new DP, so be it. But I want the team to perform well, and right now the news is saying the team is performing just fine. Yeah,
it's well said.
Yeah. I think I'll key in on that final thing that Jeff said, which is, new coach, new outlook on players. I mean, you might as well, when you're building a roster, you might as well see really what you have first before you go out and, acquire, especially, how he wants to play, what players he wants playing certain roles. The club could just bring in a guy. I mean, like Ericsson Gallardo, no offense to him, but they brought him in and then just really didn't have a place for him in the starting 11 or anywhere in the system. So you might as well wait and see, especially with a player as important as a designated player, where you really need him and where you could use him best. So at the moment, I wouldn't say I'm concerned. Obviously, if it comes, July and they still haven't made some moves, you want to see them use as much of these mechanisms, DP, TAM, as they can, but at the moment, I think this is a solid side, and I think for at least the first part of the season, as I've said, I think they'll be just fine with what they have right now.
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of noise on the forums and the general internet, like, well, compared to the other clubs in MLS, we've done nothing. Well, some of those clubs that were being compared against were screaming garbage fires, right? Like you know what I mean? It's like
Cincinnati, yeah.
It's like, well, FC Cincinnati hasn't had a proper functioning roster yet, and we're 3 years into the process. So don't compare us against the team that's consistently like buying out DPs and signing number one draft prospects and then getting transfer requests like a minute later. I mean, we gotta. It's not a binary argument. TFC's in a much better place. So
Yeah.
you know, you got to trust the process, and you know, look, even clubs like Barca. Oh, Griezmann's available, we want him, and then where the hell are we going to play him? Like we're not that club, and we've got to be smarter with our spending, especially given the fact, Michael Bradley said it, everybody said it. We don't want to complain about the added difficulties facing Canadian sides here in this new normal. But it's a reality, and we don't have to talk about it until we're blue in the face, but we definitely have to recognize that it's a reality. And I don't want to overpay for a guy, and I definitely don't want to bring a guy in. Say we sign Boré to 3 years, right? And that's the most we're going to get out of him, a 3-year deal. Well, if 2 of those years are in COVID limbo, is it worth the outlet of cash? I'm not entirely sure,
Yeah, so those are all factors, and you guys make a bunch of great points. That's still fine. I agree with you, and I'll take it even a step further. Toronto FC's roster right now, I think they're at 29 out of 30 players. They're bringing back 27 out of their 30 players. This isn't a team that, yeah, sure, we look at the first round playoff exit, but if you're using that to measure Toronto FC, you're doing it wrong. You got to look at the 8 months before that. And in that time, that club, Toronto FC, was the best, one of the best in all of MLS. Now, players who played a role on that club, key roles on that club, are not like Michael Bradley last season. He had an injury-burdened season. Did he play a role for Toronto FC? Absolutely. Was he the most significant part of that midfield? Absolutely not. Right? That was Jonathan Osorio, hands down for me. Look up top. Jozy Altari is also on the other side of 30. Let's say he doesn't bounce back next season. You still have the production you got out of Ayo Akinola that helped you get second in the Supporter Shield race. So banking on zero Jozy still gets you second in the Supporter Shield race. Now, let's say he does bounce back, chips in a couple of goals. Good, you get that bonus from Jozy, but then you also think about the likes of Jadon Nelson and the impact that he's going to have next season, and you think about Ayo Akinola getting a year older. You think about Paz getting a little bit more acclimated with the squad. Marky Delgado's 25 years old, and
forever he's forever 25. He'll never be 26.
And then you look at like Omar and Chris Mavinga. They got games together, and they looked when they did play together, they looked really good, save for a few plays and a few games. But for the most part, those guys are 2 of the top center backs in all of MLS. So there's something to say about consistency, and I don't think it's an issue that TFC are not signing players because they already have those players. Again, like the roster's at 29 out of 30. I expect that to go down with a few loans. Could they make this roster better? Yes, but at the same time, we also have to understand, like, this roster isn't a bad roster. Why would you want it just for the appeal of adding a new shiny toy? You're going to add a new shiny toy?
Yeah. Think about it. I wouldn't trade Nick DeLeon for anybody. I wouldn't trade Marky Delgado for anybody. Do you know what I mean?
Anyone realistic?
Like, yeah. Well, in terms of depth players, like, you're not going to do better than a Nick DeLeon. He's a Swiss Army knife. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Scores screamers all the time. Goal dangerous when he comes on as a garbage time sub. I mean, who's going to replace him? Aguirre Akeche because he played in La Liga 3 days? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Charlie's
it's getting too big for our britches. I mean, there are other teams that would kill to have Nick DeLeon. And sure, we don't have a Walker Zimmerman, but we have an Omar Gonzalez and a Chris Mavinga. So, at the end of the day,
the grass isn't always greener. The grass isn't always greener.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect summation of it. Absolutely.
All right, we
Mitch,
should probably wrap up there. Yeah, we should probably wrap up there. We've gone a little bit over time. I will say
we're talking about kits next week, guys.
I'm just all right, fair enough. I will say my dream scenario. I don't even know if this is possible, but since Toronto FC are also playing in Florida, if we hijacked one of Inter Miami's signings, like their DP signing, we're just like, oh, we're playing in Florida too. Why don't you just come play for us? Would be incredible. But
you just reminded me. I heard a rumor that Club de Foot also wants to play in Tampa. So do you think that they're we'll do a scrimmage to help you prepare for the Can Champ was sort of a way to get in on sharing the field with us?
And they just set up in a locker room. We're not leaving.
Yeah, we're not leaving. We're not leaving. And also, Mitch, credit to you for not taking me to task for sleeping through Arsenal beating your Foxes over the weekend.
Let's
one more
out there. Did he mute his mic? Anyway,
one more thing. Shout out to Laurent Simon for getting that assistant coaching vacancy at Club de Foot.
Hey, he might be the head coach now. We don't know.
Yeah, really. Super excited for him because we've had Eric G on in the past. We've had other TFC guests on the past, and they've all voiced how important Laurent Simon was in the dressing room and how much of a leader he was, how good he was at keeping things light. Obviously, with his family situation and everything, we wish him the best in Montreal, and obviously when you play us, we wish you the worst. But other than that, Lolo, best of luck from TFC fans, and thank you for that 2019 MLS Cup playoff run.
I really wanted him to go to Vancouver, man, do the trifecta, but as long as he's still in Canada, we're good.
That would have been incredible. Well, we're deep into injury time here. Producer Sophia's probably fallen asleep, but we appreciate all the work that she's done on the show this week. It was great catching up with Rocco, Romeo as well on this week's show, and obviously an exciting month ahead. We're so excited for everything that's happening between the national teams and Toronto FC. So we'll have actual games to talk about until next Tuesday.